Okay, hey, we're back again for another great interview. I have got a great, amazing treat for you guys this week. Gary Cobb, who phenomenal, uh, great guy. He grew up in the South, went to USC, played football for one of the all-time great college programs. I'm a little biased on Gary, and played 11 years in the NFL. Is involved in politics, still does some work for the Philadelphia Eagles, and does radio broadcasting for them as well. Does some work with the NFL in transition, mentoring, and coaching. And so, I could go on, but I want to give him time so you can hear his voice and his perspective. So, Gary, thanks for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure, Ken. This is going to be fun.
I'm glad. Hey, okay, so man, there's so much to unpack, and so let's just start at the beginning. So your family grew up in North Carolina before, at an early age, your parents moved you guys to Connecticut, but you've got cousins and aunts and uncles so tell me about that culture back in the 60s. Growing up.
See, I was born in 1957. And so as a little guy, I remember walking up, when we were traveling, going from North Carolina to Connecticut, because I lived 6 years in North Carolina. And then we moved to Connecticut because my dad couldn't find work in the South, because couldn't work for the government. He had been in the Army. And so he spent some time in the Army. And during his time in the Army, he tells us stories about how he had to wait in the car, and the white soldiers would be able to go in, eat in the restaurant, bring him a sandwich. He went through that. And when we would be traveling on the road, we'd stop at a gas station, and I'm a little guy, 3, 4, 5, I would go to the wrong water fountain. There's black water fountain, white water fountain. It all looks like water to me. So my pops, no, that's the wrong water fountain. You got to go to this water fountain over here. So I remember that as a kid. This is, of course, the early 60s. And so you kind of, you look back and laugh, and you see the way it was then. But it was a different world in the South. Way my parents talked about, there was a really white community, black community. But then in certain ways, they were intermixed, because my mother, who, and I had my great-grandmother, she birthed nearly everybody in the town. So, black and white. She was like, the lady came in, and when the lady was pregnant, they all trusted her because she had experience. So she had really a lot of power in even though she was black, because she birthed everybody.
Yeah, so nothing like necessity, right? To break barriers, right? If you need something, all of a sudden it doesn't really. All those things don't really matter, and that's one of the beauties of sport as well.
Yeah.
Even though it was slow to the change, it was one of the areas that we were able to break as a culture, right? Break those barriers. But anyway,
that's right.
So keep going.
Well, and see, what you mentioned right there with the fact that you have these, strange things is, even there are times, they talked about, they were breastfeeding the white babies.
Nursemaids, right?
So going like, what? I thought people were, want to be separated, and then you have, in the most intimate of ways, you've got the intermingling.
Well, I know that's crazy, right? Because the idea that you'd have to sterilize a swimming pool because there was a black person that that stuck his toe in the water, and yet at the same time, it's okay to have a black nursemaid for your white baby. It's just, is like crazy, but that's how it was.
Yeah, that's how it was. And see, even you had the segregation and everything, but in some ways, especially the women, because it was male dominated. Both black and white. The males were the dominant, but the women would have a close relationship, because some of the black ladies that were over cleaning house and watching the kids and everything, they knew the most intimate things, where the white lady would tell them, hey, their husband was beating them, or their husband was cheating on them. The only people they had to confide in was this lady that was cleaning their house. And so they would come very close, but they couldn't be seen together in public. And, you know, it just was, you know, it was very, it wasn't as clear as everybody saw things. It's very complicated where sometimes people were very, very close. And there were, you know, things happening and things, you know. And
but there was still this overall structure of,
yeah,
and
that's right.
there's a lady that just recently released a book called Caste. Her last name is
Mm-hmm.
Wilkerson. I can't remember her first name, but you know, she sees America as far more of a, which I mean, you can find her on YouTube and interviews if you're
Mm-hmm.
interested, because it's, I mean, she really brings this whole idea of America is not a class system, it's a caste system that's made up of a lot of different categories, but the big category in America is race and ethnicity as
Yeah.
a caste.
Yeah.
And then
Mm-hmm.
on top of that, you have other things like gender, which is what you're talking about. So that's where they connect it as oppressed classes or groups, right? And
Yes,
then you
that's
have
correct.
socioeconomic class as well, which is, yeah. So
Yeah. So
why'd you guys move out of the South? Well, go ahead.
okay, so we moved out of the South because my dad couldn't find work. You know, he couldn't work for the government. A lot of things he couldn't do, and see what had happened is when my dad went to the Army, he discovered something. He discovered the value of education because he saw that the only people that they promoted were guys with a high school diploma, and he only had an 8th grade. You know, he was an 8th grade graduate, and he and my mom, they had, you know, dropped out of school. And so when he came back, he would drive the bus, and he would get out of the bus. He'd drive the kids to school. He would get out of the bus and go to school with the kids, and he got his high school diploma. And so that's really what made a big change in our family, because my dad always told us, "You guys are getting your education. I don't care what everybody else is doing. You are getting your education." And so he made us A's and B's. He didn't want to see any C's. And so we grew up with that. And he really discovered that when he was in the Army. But anyway, we moved north to Connecticut because he saw that there was work in Connecticut. And he eventually, when we moved north, he got a job as a postal clerk. And so that's really what we grew up, you know, he was working as a postal clerk. And he started a company, a maintenance business, where at night we would clean buildings and, you know, with Jesse Cobb Maintenance Service. And you know who the workers were.
Well, how many siblings in your family?
3 brothers and 3 sisters. And so we would do the cleaning, and, you know,
So seven. He had a crew of 7 workers, huh?
Yeah, had a crew of 7 workers. And so we would complain about it and everything, but, you know, really was what it did. It taught us the value of work, you know, being able to stay with things. And so, and during the time when we would drive up to the buildings, of course, we're talking, you know, we're talking about what, you know, all different types of things. So it really helped us communication and everything. And he used to make us get up at the dinner table, and we had to give speeches at the dinner table, talk about what we did in school, whatever. And when we'd be looking at the games on TV, and let's say it was a Super Bowl, and after the game, a guy was talking. He said, "Do you hear this guy using these double negatives? I better never hear you. You can't be on TV talking like this guy, you know." And so he, you know, those are the kind of things I remember, you know, from my dad. My mom, she was the encourager. She was always the one that would come and give you the hug and everything. So we really had, you know, I can't say enough about my parents. You know, they really, you know, gave us, and they lived to see us get opportunities, because there were opportunities they didn't have. So right. We had moved north, and we got that, he got that job as a postal clerk. And because initially when we moved north, we were living in like two rooms, you know, with all 9 of us. And, you know, but we wound up moving to a bigger place. But we had fun growing up because we had that stability. And that was really a big thing, is that with my mother and my father, their marriage, you know, and there was a commitment there. And that was something that really was an example to me in my life. And it really was something that really gave us a foundation. And I really enjoyed growing up. You know, we had fun, and we didn't have everything. I mean, for a while we were eating mayonnaise sandwiches and ketchup sandwiches, you know, because when we got to school, we're going like, you mean you're supposed to be meat in all of these? You're supposed to be meat?
Jeez. Oh
So,
my
you know,
gosh.
we would laugh. How you doing? We would laugh, you know, but, you know, it was the kind of thing where we didn't know, you know, you just
Yeah,
got,
I mean,
you know,
it's funny, but it's not funny. Yeah.
but, but
So
we
as
laugh
you
at it now.
so you go back down and you'd visit your cousins as you got, into high school
Yes.
and
Hmm.
so what was the contrast? You'd go down and see a different culture, right? Down in
Yeah, it was a
Carolina
different
as
culture.
opposed to the Northeast. And maybe, I mean, I grew up on the West Coast. I grew up in California, so it's a long ways culturally, a lot of social distance between, the West Coast and understanding not only the on the surface cultural differences, but then there's some undercurrents in the Northeast that like they might not be might not be some overt acceptable social norm racism, but there's some undercurrents in that, right? So help
Well,
us
I can tell you
help us
what,
understand.
let me just go into this real quick. Now, my dad, he wanted us to do well in school. So we always were in the highest class, you know. We were in whatever there was the elite class. So we were in like an all white class. It was just us because with it was just the trends where it was not cool if you were black to do well in school, you know. It wasn't cool to do well in school. So, but
How'd you
my
deal
dad didn't want to hear that.
how'd you deal with, yeah, your dad? So at home they didn't want to deal with that, but you had to deal with that at school. So what was that like at school? Because you're violating the norms
Yeah,
within your
it
own
was
culture
pressure.
based on the color of your skin, right?
That's right.
So
And there
how'd
was
you deal with
pressure.
that?
Well, we just you know, I didn't have as much problem because I was a standout athlete, so that was something that would really, immune me to everything, you know. So they, that's Cobb, you know. So we're not gonna criticize him, but they went after my sisters. My sisters, they got beat up at times. We'd have to go protect them and things like that
Well, who beat him
because
up?
they were these brainiacs. It would be black kids, you know, who would say, you know, you're a sellout, you know, you act like you're white, you know. It would
Back in
be
the
that kind of thing.
60s, that was going on in the 60s, the height of
Yeah,
the civil rights era. Wow.
that was right. You're acting like you're white, and then the teachers too. I remember third grade when I went into the class the first time, and I was big for my age, and I'm the only black in the class, and so I come in, I sit in the back because everybody's always complaining. We can't see the board, Gary. Your head, what, you know? So I sit in the back, but the teacher says, "Okay, we're not gonna have this. You better come up here and sit in the front." Because she figured I was going to be a problem, you know.
Huh.
So she wants me to sit near her so, you know, that she's going to be able to keep an eye on me. Well, by the time in the middle of the school year, she said, you know, Gary, you can go back and sit in the back because you're in everybody, you know, because such and such can't see over you. And, you know, you're a good student, you know, you can sit in the back. And she would leave me in charge of the class because she knows that, well, the way my dad was, we weren't getting in any trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we didn't want anything to get home and say, you know, we weren't doing something in class. But it's just the fact that she looked at all the black kids that they were going to be bad. See, that's what I got. You know, this is in third grade. So my dad would talk to us about things, and my mom would talk to us about the fact that you don't let other people set your dream. Don't let them do that. You set your dreams up high. And they would be talking to us about it. Anybody did anything, they would be talking about, look at this person did, you can do this. And so, you know, my dad he was a dreamer because he didn't get the chance to do everything he wanted to. He wanted to do, you know, additional things, but he didn't get the chance. But he wanted to make sure that we took advantage of our opportunities. And so he stressed it all the time.
So
And when my older brother, he was a real good athlete. When he decided on where he's going to go to school, he wanted to go to Illinois, Big Ten. My dad said, no, you're going to Ivy League school. So he went to Dartmouth, you know, and that's the way he was about all of us. But he let me slide and let me go to USC. He wanted me to go to Princeton. See, that's the way he was. And So I have brothers and sisters that are pretty much most of them, when they went to Ivy League schools. You know, I went to USC, and because he was getting mellow when I came along.
So you have brothers and sisters that through education as the as the ladder that, I mean, that's what the ladder is for most everybody these days, right? But
Yep.
very important, right? If you're lower socioeconomic or whatever, right, that's the social norm for the means of climbing that ladder, right? How did it compare
Yeah.
when you went back to the Carolinas? You'd been out, up north in Connecticut for a few years. You'd go back down and visit. Was that like a bit of a culture shock to return to there? I mean, did you see the contrast? I mean, help us understand.
Well, it was like going to another country. You know, that's what it was like, because the mentality really of everybody. You know, because the big thing is that so many of the youngsters they didn't see themselves doing certain things. You know, and from moving north, I got the chance. I was on the baseball team, and there were black guys, white guys on the team. In my class, and it was no big deal. So I'm going, I can do what they can do, but that mentality wasn't there with my cousins. It's something that they didn't have as much because they were in the South. Now I saw things gradually changing some, but it was behind. It wasn't the same type of exposure, and that's the big thing. The exposure, being exposed to where you get to see what goes on in a hospital. What do the doctors do? What happens? What is law? What is that about? What do lawyers really do? What would it take to be a lawyer? Different things like this. This is what I was exposed to, because they would have lawyers and doctors come to the school. And we had a school, it was predominantly white, but it was, let's say, maybe 30% black. And it was, though, a very good school. We had good schools we attended in Connecticut. And because of that, I got that type of exposure, to where I can do it. And my brothers and sisters were the same way. Hey, we can dream and we can do that. And so we dreamed, and we looked into things, and my dad was pushing us, and my mom was hugging us and encouraging us. And that was a great environment to succeed.
Right. So, I mean, I'm finding them. I mean, I know that USC did do some recruiting, nationally, because I mean, even you as a USC football player, linebacker, outside linebacker and pass rusher, right? You had two Rose Bowl wins and a national championship. Pretty amazing. How'd that whole recruiting thing go? Who recruited you, by the way?
Well, I was recruited. Princeton was there. Dartmouth, of course. Where my brother and sister had gone. I had some Big Ten schools. Were coming after me, and some of the ACC schools. But USC, when they started coming after me, though, I had seen them on TV, and then I saw, look at all the black players they got. It's like, never, wow, look at all the guys, man. They got like a interracial team,
What year did you graduate from high school?
I graduated in 1975.
Okay, 75. So Sam, the whole story of Sam, I mean, I've heard the story from Craig Ferguson, and I've read about it, and they document it on documentaries, but I mean, you were like playing with guys that actually were on that team where Bear Bryant, right, comes out from Alabama. He flies out to meet John McKay and begs John McKay to take his team the next season with Sam Bam Cunningham out to Alabama and kick Alabama's butt, because Bear Bryant in Alabama wanted to recruit the best athletes, which meant black athletes as well as white athletes, whoever's the best. But the university and the state of Alabama told him no way. So he devised this plan, right, to go have USC come out and have Sam Bam Cunningham and the whole USC team that's diverse and integrated roll over that damn tide.
That's right.
No pun intended on that. So I mean, but you're playing with guys that were part of that, and you're right on the cusp of what's looking back on that? What are your thoughts on that whole?
Well, see, and that's something that was one of the reasons I went to USC is because I saw, first of all, you had the excellence, and you had so many African American players. It's like, it was like, it was no big deal, and so seeing them on TV, and I remember, when they played, it was O.J. Simpson was playing, and I remember him because he's the one that really attracted me first. And then, of course, with, Sam Cunningham and Anthony Davis and all those guys, they just took it all to another level. But it was just so exciting because, to see a team with all these black players, and then they weren't just out there going through the motions. They were a great team. And, that began with John McKay. It was like, this is the place to go. So I never thought they would come after me, but I said, boy, if I was ever to get a letter from USC and everything, that's it. I mean, I don't even need to talk to anybody else, and that's the way it was. But and then when I met the players, it was really a challenge coming in there because I told my dad, and he was the big pusher and telling me to work and everything, that I thanked him that he got me ready for this, because if I was ever going to play at USC, I was going to have to fight and claw my way onto the field, because just the linebackers. I mean, the linebackers we had there, we had about 8 future pro linebackers on one team. So, and these guys were great players, and just to get on the field, you're going to have to fight and claw your way on there. But it made me a better player, just being in that environment. But USC was a challenge, playing against the offensive linemen that were there, with the Munozes and Brad Buddy. I remember those guys, Roy Foster, guys that went on to have, great NFL careers. We had to battle them every day, with Ricky Bell on the team and Marcus Allen, and Charles White. These are the guys we're fighting, Heisman Trophy winners. We're fighting them at practice every day. So if you wanted to be a big-time player, you're going to have to show what you could do against big-time players. So that's the way it was.
Yeah. I mean, man, what a great career you had. And yeah, what a great team. And, I mean, the one
Ronnie
thing
Lott was on that team. Think about it. Ronnie Lott was on that team. I remember us being, we were getting ready for the summer, and we got so excited. We were wrestling over at Men's West. We're wrestling each other. And unfortunately, one of the guys got in a bear hug, and he had to go to the hospital because we squeezed him too tight. But this was me, Ronnie Lott, all these other guys, Dennis Smith that played, Dennis Smith,
Ricky Gray, Steve
Gray.
Busick.
That's right, all those guys. Yeah,
Ty Sperling.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and the thing is, and Marv Gu was, he was some kind of coach too. He was there, and they tell you what, hey, if you're gonna play here at USC, we don't ever stop fighting. I don't care what the situation is, we fight. And so that's where that old fight on,
Yeah, and you're not talking about fist fighting. You're talking about that internal.
That's right.
You're talking about competing, but
that's right. Talking about competing.
Level.
Yeah.
You're talking about competing, but you're talking about competing at a level that invokes that kind of fighting, because it is competitive, right? So
that's right.
You come out of USC, mm-hmm. 2 Super Bowl champions, national champion. You get drafted by the Cowboys.
Yeah.
In the 9th round, which, you got to fight. You're not like you're a first or second rounder and you've got a year or two of give them some time. You had to show production coming mm-hmm. out of the gate, because they don't even have 9 rounds anymore, right?
That's right. Yeah, well, and I was down there. I remember, the time down there in Dallas. And it was great because, a guy like Roger Staubach, I remember being there. And this was during the off season, and we were playing a pickup game of basketball. He's diving on the asphalt for loose balls. Roger Staubach. I'm going like, isn't he the quarterback? But he was, and that's why when you talk about leadership and things, the reason these guys would fight for Roger Staubach is because Roger Staubach was a competitor, you know. He's going to be honest. He's not a cheap shot and everything. But if you think he's letting you go, if you don't think he's going to try to slide around and crack block up, he's supposed to block you, you know. And so you develop all kind of respect for those guys. So I really really enjoyed my time there. You know, I got they held me around after the season started, but eventually they let me go. And then, you know, I got picked up by Detroit.
Yeah.
But
Man,
I really enjoyed seeing great competitors like that. And, you know, that's what I saw at USC. You know, people with character, you know, like Munoz. I mean, this guy is going to come and he's going to clean your clock, but he's going to help you up, talk to you, you know, in the locker room and everything. But on that field, we are going at it because we got to get ready for the game. And I just love that environment. And that environment when it comes to, you know, educationally, regards to, that is what, you know, people are able to really get to the point to where they excel and they're able to hone their skills, is when you really are going to put everything you can into competing and being the best you can be. So I got that from growing up.
Well, one of the things that I miss, although I love when we get together as transition coaches, right? But because it is just like there's a brotherhood that goes deeper than our skin, and gosh, I miss that in the real world. It's I get so weary, you know, of our segregated culture, even though it's much better than, you know, when we were growing up. But God, if we could get to that place where we could take that locker room of brotherhood and expand that into everyday life, you know, and care, and because we had a bigger, I think we just don't have a bigger enemy or a bigger goal or something that's drawing us together. So if you can make money on dividing us or getting votes, dividing us and getting votes, or getting media ratings and then the people are going to do that, and they're going to take advantage of whatever they see they can to divide us, whether it's gender or race or, you know, not saying that there aren't divisions in there, but man, to accentuate those for profit is just, I think, tearing this country apart. But so I've got so many questions I want to ask you. I can't put the right one in the right order, but let me let me just throw it out. So what was so part of the perspective in sociology, right, is that, you know, we take advantage of whoever we are. We take advantage of those opportunities where we think we have the greatest opportunity, especially if there's blocks or the perceived challenges or barriers to other areas. And so one of the ideas in sociology of sport is that it's not some hidden black gene that results in more African Americans being athletes. I mean, there might be some biological, I mean, they're still trying to figure that out. But from a sociological perspective, it's like if there are barriers to success in other areas of life, then entertainment, sports, music, you know, things like that is the pathway, then that becomes the focus of that culture for those opportunities. Does that ring true in real life?
I think it does. You know, I mean, I can think back to when I was in grade school. And as I said, you know, I was pretty much in an all-white classroom. And then when I was in grade school, the kids that were my classmates, you know, they were very well to do. I mean, their parents lived in this area called Chapin in Stamford, Connecticut. And the Chapin area is where the wealthy lived. So they were all from that area. And times they would have like little parties. And I go over there, and in our house, you know, we got like 3 bedrooms, but we got like we got 4 boys in 1 bedroom. We got 3 girls in 1 bedroom. and we've got my mom and dad in the other bedroom. So 3 bedrooms, but in their house, you know, they got it all spread out, you know, and they got like 4 color TVs. You know, back then color TV was a big deal. They had the big color TVs. We got black and white TVs where
they had the 15-inch big screen color with three channels.
That's right. But you know, they you know, we saw that they, you know, we hadn't seen people live like they live, and so the thing that really really got me connected with everybody was my athletic ability. So that's something that got me into athletics, because I didn't realize, look at everybody makes a big deal, you know, because I was a pitcher in baseball. You know, and when I was little, you know, I'm throwing a fastball and throw it by everybody. You know, everybody's making such a big deal. I'm going like, wow, everybody's making such a big deal. And so sports is something that it really was a big deal to me, because I saw that it was opening a door for me. You know, I was not just another kid. I was Gary Cobb, because, you know, I could pitch, hit home runs, and basketball. I was a good basketball player, and then in football, and so that allowed me to be a kind of a standout, and that's why I really got serious about sports. And then, of course, as I started continue looking at it, you know, I started dreaming of, hey, I can go to college, you know. Then I saw my older brother go to college because of football. He played football, and my older brother was really the one I kind of copied everything. My older brother, James. So he was doing well in school, and he was a real good athlete, played football, basketball, and baseball. So I copied everything he did. And like when we were in high school, we were co-captains of every team, the basketball team, football team, baseball team, you know, the Cobbs. So I was just emulating him. And so I saw how it made you popular and everything. So sports opened that door for me. And that's the way I started getting into it. And of course, my dreams started getting bigger as I saw, you know, things down the road. But sports opened opportunity. It did the same thing for my little brother. My sisters didn't play as much. See, and that says something right there, because they could have played too, but they didn't play as much. But the sports opened doors for all of my brothers, all of us, and my sisters. You know, of course, education. They were, you know, like straight A students. You know, but that opened the door. And when we were little, I remember, like, you know, 3rd, 4th grade, when I started really getting big on sports, because I saw the way people were reacting to it.
So that gave you some social capital status, and you were like, hey, that's not so much maybe a path. Well, I guess, yeah, path of least resistance, and as well as elevation within society, within your peer group, within.
Yeah, and you know the thing it is, it made me a big deal with the black and the white people, because there was kind of, you know, everything was kind of you know, 2 societies. Even in the North, you know, there was a black community and the white community, but because they were putting like articles in the paper about it, you know, I was a big deal. I'm going like, you know, I'm 12 years old. You know, I go into the store, they go, hey, that's Gary Cobb. He was in the paper. Gary, you hit 2 home runs yesterday? Yeah, well, I hit 2 home runs, you know? And so that was a big deal. So that's where sports really start making a difference in my life. And it really, you know, like I said, it really caused people to treat me differently. And one of the things that I didn't run into anymore was people like at school, where they would assume I was going to be a troublemaker because I was black. That's, you know, that wasn't something I had to deal with anymore, because they were kind of, Gary Cobb's a good student too, you know, because my dad, but and then there would be some black guys would go, hey, man, Cobb, you know, man, sometimes you act like a white boy. You know, I didn't like that one, you know, because I was doing well in school.
And how'd you respond to that?
Well, some guys got hit.
Gary. Okay.
But for the most part, you know, most of them were intimidated in me in doing that, so they wouldn't do that to me. But I would remember. So if it was a guy at practice, I would remember. Okay, let me catch you going across the middle.
I got you. Yeah, you would remember come practice time, huh? That's good. Well, you know, do you remember Ken Hutcherson, the linebacker for the Cowboys?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you were you a pretty decent acquaintance of his? I mean, did you?
No, I wasn't. No, we weren't there together. No, we weren't there at the same time. No.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
cause
his whole story was like the the enticement of football for him was that he was able to legally punish white people.
woo.
Yeah, you haven't heard that story
Well,
about.
you know what? No, I didn't hear that. But that's another thing is that it was. I did like the fact that it was pretty much equal, Steve. Meaning like, hey, don't care what color you are.
Right.
I'm I'm busting you up, and
Right.
and I'm not apologizing.
Yeah. Now Hutch had to. I mean, as you move up, those things may motivate you, but I mean, when the tough get, I mean, eventually he worked through that,
Uh
because
huh.
Hutch is just a great guy, or was a great
Uh
guy.
huh.
But
Yeah.
yeah, what a great man, Ken Hutcherson.
Wow.
He played for Down, and then he ended up finishing with the Seahawks, in that
Yeah.
expansion draft. He and
Yeah.
Norman.
I remember when he was up there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, great guy, great brother.
Yeah.
Um, so what? Tell me this. So you today, right? You've run for office in
Mm-hmm.
was that state or federal congressional district?
That was federal
That's what I
congressional. Yeah.
thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
federal.
Uh-huh.
You're the voice of the Philadelphia Eagles around the radio.
Well, see, the great thing that I like about radio, and for years, I don't do it as much anymore, where I'm on the radio talking, but you get to talk about whatever's on your mind. You can really talk to people and open up. And I would talk about my family and how I grew up and all that, and really communicate with people. And I think you're able to undress things that before the sports talk and different talk shows were things people wouldn't talk about. It's taboo. You can't talk about it. Well, you'd be able to talk about it and get paid for it, get paid for pulling the wraps off something, going like,
So,
what?
so
Let's
even
talk about what the truth is about, this and that. And so I've always enjoyed that. And I still get a chance to do it some, but I really enjoyed being able to do that because it was just so different to be able to do that where you're talking to all these people and they couldn't just turn me off and go, no, this is what I experienced. Like I tell them, I remember going up to the water fountain. I remember those water fountains as a kid. I remember the way my dad talked about all the way they were treated, and the way my mom was treated. And, nobody can deny this is what happened and different things we went through, even when we moved north, of how we had to start at the bottom and work our way up.
So the other thing you do too is you work as a mentor for guys what the NFL in the player engagement out of New York, their headquarters, calls transition coaches, or we
Mm-hmm.
might just in lay people's terms say you're mentoring guys coming out, right? You're tracking with guys. You've been through it. You're successful. You've spent hours, tens, dozens of hours in training, to get this, to hone your skills. It's nothing you take lightly. What would you say are the challenges that are different for Black athletes today, either coming out of high school, college, or, let's say a guy coming out of high school or college, but he's not going into the pros, or a guy coming out, when the sports career is over, whether it's pro or college, what are the challenges and opportunities that are different in comparing and contrasting, say, the 70s, which was, gosh, that's 50 years ago now, to
Yeah.
today? Are there
Well,
different?
yeah, I think, there are different challenges. For one thing, there are a lot of, unfortunately, with a lot of the young Black players, they didn't grow up with their dad. And that's a challenge because, at times they're maybe a little bit, they lack confidence in themselves. They're not sure about certain things. They need to be reinforced. They need somebody to tell them, you're good at this. You can do this. You can do this. Don't you back off on it. You can do this, and you need to, and reinforcing and letting them, giving them some time and encouraging them and letting them feel good about themselves, and so in a lot of ways, I find myself having to encourage guys and give them the confidence to go on and attack things, because they develop confidence on the field that they could play. But I try to give them that confidence that in a boardroom, in a meeting room, that they can communicate properly. If they were to do something in the media, that they can do that, but that they have the confidence that they got the skills, encourage them that they can do it, and that they need to attack it and not give up on it. And they might have some times where they might have some bumps in the head where things don't work out. Just keep on fighting, keep on competing, keep on trying, and everything will work out. So that's part of it. It's really, I feel myself kind of in a father role, where the guy needs a hug and then a kick in the butt, So he needs the push, but he needs the hug too. And so I have the guys call me, and I can tell by the tone of the call of kind of what they expect. But it's really it's something I really enjoy. It's a privilege to be able to help people, because I'll look through the guy and I'll see those kids. I'll see his wife. I'll see the people. So I know that what kind of a guy he becomes, that he is. He's going to have an effect on all these lives, and then they're going to go have kids and everything. So you realize the importance of it. So I realized that if I can be a help, and I can give him a boost. I'm helping his whole family, and so many of these guys. Of course, the guy plays such a key role to give confidence to his daughters, to be able to hug them, tell them, you're valuable, I love you, in a healthy way, to where that's going to stay with her the rest of her life. Certain things she will not tolerate. She sees, how she should be treated as a woman. It starts with her dad, and if he doesn't have confidence in himself, then he's not going to be able to give her what she needs. And I talked to them about the importance of the role of the father, that you play such a good, important role, and to be able to talk to the guys, I realized that it's just something vital. And some of them, have to deal with challenges maybe most of the white players don't have to deal with, because they're going into environments where some people have a bias against them right from the start. And where you have to know you do not quit. I tell them, no, you go up there and keep knocking on that door, because you're going to make it better for somebody else coming along behind you. So it's not just you, but you need to go ahead and you need to knock on that door, and you need to compete. The same way, the athletes did on the football field, you're competing in these other areas. And we need people that will go in and compete and fight and will not quit. And that's what I could, thank God for having with my time at USC, was to have people that say, no, do not just roll over. Don't roll over. No, you got to feel better about yourself. You keep going in there, knocking on that door, and it's going to be good for everybody. So that's why I enjoy it. And you end up running into all type of things that you can make a difference. And that's what it really comes down to, is you can make a difference in one person's life, and really the whole community. You get the chance to make a difference, and that's really what it's all about.
Well, I tell you, just listening to your story, talking about, how fortunate are all of us as former athletes, right? But your dad, and your mom, right? And
Yep.
then your coaches, guys like Marv Goo.
Yep.
Oh, and you know who I hang out with? I totally forgot that John Marshall.
Oh yeah, Coach Marshall, he was with my linebacker coach.
I know he was. That's why I brought his name up. So he lives about 20 minutes from me.
Is that so?
Yeah, and
you tell him I said hello.
I will do that, and it will put the biggest smile on his face, because
you give him my number. Yeah, tell him to give me a ring. So Coach Marshall's, I know he came from Oregon. He came down to coach at USC, but great guy. Again, the same type of things. He cared about us, but he made us compete, And
right, yeah, he was one of those kind of guys. Marv Goo, John Marshall. I don't know who you had in the NFL, specifically, but it's guys like that, right? And then they have, through you, built a legacy that you are now passing on to them. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Yeah, Coach Marshall. Yeah, I tell you, I really appreciate him, because he was great when it comes to technically teaching us, being sound fundamentally. And, you know, as you continue playing and you get up against the pros and you're playing against these great players, you appreciate coaches that made you, that really just drilled those fundamentals in you. Because you know, if you're not fundamentally sound, you get against these, you know, elite athletes. If you're not doing it properly, you know, you're going to pay a price.
Gary,
you know?
you crack me up. You kill me, man. You're cracking me up because it's like you're talking about these elite players like you're not one of them. And and you are.
Well,
I mean, you played 11 years in the NFL. I mean, less than 3% of NFL players play 10 years or more, and you played that plus, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that's 3% of the 1/10 of 1/10 of 1% of high school players that make it to the pros. So yeah, you don't talk about these elite players like you're not one of them, man. You crack me up, man.
Well, you know, the thing is, I just have a lot of respect for, you know, for the guys you go against. You know how good they are.
Yes.
And so it pushes you to a level, and you don't realize, because, you know, you don't realize you're going up on that level, but they're pushing you up there because you're saying, I know, hey, who am I playing this after? I got to play against Walter Payton. That's who I got to cover. I got to tackle him. So I got to have my game ready, you know.
Believe me, as a left tackle, it was like week in and week out. If it wasn't Richard Dent, it was Chris Dolman. If it wasn't Chris Dolman, it was Lawrence Taylor. Or Eric Thomas, or Bruce Smith, or Clyde Simmons, the guy you played with, right?
That's right.
Thank goodness. I mean, I always thought of Clyde Simmons as a little bit of a break because Reggie White was on the other side for a change. I mean, dang. And Clyde was good, man. I mean,
he was. Yeah.
Those were a couple of great bookends, man. And then when they put Reggie over the center and covered both guards, oh my goodness! I have to tell you a story about that one on a different when we're not online.
Okay.
When we were playing, a couple stories about Reggie. What a great guy, man.
Yeah, great guy. Well, we were roommates. You know, Reggie and I were roommates, and you know, Reggie was, you know, and you know, just to talk about things, how you'd be valuable. You know, my dad came to the game. You know, you would have thought my dad was the president or he was someone. The guys treated my dad like he was such a celebrity. Because see, so many of the guys grew up without their dads.
Right.
They just were all over him. Reggie, and you know, when we went up to the room, and and I got up to the room, and Reggie's crying. You know, he's got 330 pounds. His dad didn't want to come to the game. You know, we were at a game out in LA, but his dad didn't want to come in. He didn't develop much of a relationship with his dad. But it meant so much to him, and here he was crying because he didn't have that relationship with his dad, you know, and that's that's the way life is. These guys were real guys. Reggie's a great man, a great man. I really
no, I mean, that's one of the several things we have in common is we both were teammates, and I did some speaking stuff with Reggie on racial reconciliation because he really was. You know, he and I'd go out and do some speaking engagements together. I was, but you know, the one guy that to me of the 12 years, right, with, you know how many guys come in and out of your, you know, you cross with, whether they're on other teams, but mostly on your team, Keith Jackson, that guy, heads and tails above us. So like people would, I'd have friends come in or family, you know, usually family, you know, and they'd be in the room after the game, and you know, I'd introduce them to a couple of the guys, you know. And you know, then we'd go out to dinner after the game, and you know, I always ask, so you know, of the day, you know, what was the best part of your weekend, you know, on your visit, what was the best part of the day? And I'd say, okay, of all the guys you met, you know, Reggie White, Brett Favre, you know, Sterling Sharp, all these, you know, future Hall of Famers, you know, who'd you enjoy the most? Almost every single person for the, you know, few years that we crossed Jackson.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Keith had a great sense of humor, really down to earth. He would cut through the thing. See, you know, you have some guys that just have that gift of where they can just connect with people, you know.
Yep.
And because he's such a genuine guy. But yeah, I got a chance to play with Keith as well, but just just a great guy, you know, and
Hey, you know the other thing
great player as well.
you know the other thing with Reggie, because I became a believer in Green Bay, a true believer, and
Yeah.
Reggie baptized my wife and I in the Packer jacuzzi.
Is that so?
And Keith was there too. Yeah, that's what reminded me.
Wow.
Yeah, Keith
That's amazing. Wow.
Keith led
That's a,
Keith
is
led
that
a
so?
couple of hymns,
Yeah.
and then he and Reggie would get in the back of the bus,
Yeah.
and, they'd start, preaching like they were black Southern
Yeah.
Baptist preachers, and oh
That's it.
my gosh, they were freaking. I mean, and
Yeah.
they had it down.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Anyway, I don't know, man.
Yeah, those guys are entertainers. It would have been great if they had a show, you know, because they were entertainers.
Oh, no kidding, right? I mean, man, they could have put it on. That was a really sad tragedy with Reg, but
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I get a chance every now and then to talk to Sarah, his wife. You know, we talk because we're good friends, you know, so I still talk to them every now and then.
Oh man, please, if you remember, please give her my best. And
I will do that.
You know, that was always interesting too, because when they came out to Green Bay, this was okay. So he's this big time marquee player, right? And she gets a job with a news media, right? As a not a commentator, but like a weekday. Well, there's women in the locker room now. How do you navigate that when your teammate's wife is also in the locker room?
I didn't know that. So Sarah was doing that?
Yeah. Now her rules were, I'm going to interview people outside the locker room.
Okay.
She never went into the locker room, but she could have credential-wise.
Wow.
Where guys are showering and changing. The deal. It's like,
I tell you what, I'm gonna give her the business next time I talk to her.
Well, where is she living?
No, she's down in Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah. In the Knoxville area.
Yeah, she's down there. Yeah. Well, in fact, she's not. No, she's in Charlotte now. They live in the Charlotte area.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were down there.
Charlotte. It's Charlotte. It's Charlotte, not Tennessee, but down in Charlotte. Yeah. But she's doing good. She's doing good.
Yeah. That's good. Well, you know what? I had some other questions, but this is a long interview. But you know what? I hope that part of what my students will feel, enjoy, share is the little bit of time, these last 10 minutes that we had, talking about. I mean, that's what it is when guys get together, or gals get together too, I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. I've never been where former female athletes get together, but certainly with guys, and it just, sports has an amazing way of breaking down barriers, whether it's Jackie Robinson or Jack Johnson or.
Now, just to tell you real quick, Jackie Robinson spoke at my Little League banquet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I was a kid. Of course, I didn't know all the significance of Jackie Robinson. I knew, well, he broke the color barrier, but I don't know. Wow. But yeah, he spoke because he lived in North Stamford. And see, I lived in Stamford, Connecticut.
Oh, I didn't know
that. At our Little League banquet, Jackie Robinson lived in North Stamford. So they had him come speak at the banquet. I'm going like, how could I not got a picture with Jackie Robinson?
Hey, did you ever see that movie?
And then my dad would always talk to us about Jackie Robinson. He would tell us the stories because my dad was big on history. So he talked about Jesse Owens and what it was like. He remembers, with Joe Louis and listening to the radio.
Right.
And that's one of the ways we fell in love with sports too, is because my dad would talk about Jesse Owens and him, winning those gold medals
in Berlin.
In Berlin, and how it messed up Hitler and all of his, with that crazy mentality. And he talked about that. He talked about Joe Louis, the Brown Bomber, and then Jackie Robinson, how he broke the color barrier. And then the way they would talk, like every day after the games, they're going like, well, how did Jackie do? That's the way, all black people were, hey, how did Jackie Robinson do? Because he was carrying all this weight, of whole people, to break that barrier. And it just, just from growing up and listening, to my dad talk about those guys, and the way him and his brothers would go, they had to go down like a few miles away to get to a radio to be able to hear about these guys on the radio, and it just was something. So I kind of carried that torch for him, and they're still with us though. My mom and dad, they're moving a lot slower, but they're almost 90 and they're still moving along. So God bless them.
Yeah, no kidding, man. No, I was going to ask you if your folks are still around. That's so
they're still
cool.
here. Yep.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yep.
I guess one final question to kind of wrap up, right? Kind of a more modern day. Well, actually, kind of like, where do we go from here, right? So, there's a couple different perspectives, on, and they kind of align with like the political right and the political left as it relates to the Black culture, right? And on the right, part of that comes out of the Great Society and Lyndon B. Johnson's Great Society, as far as maybe too much of a handout instead of a hand up perspective, if you want to put it in those terms. But what do you think sociopolitically or sociologically, or what are the, or even just culturally, right? Because the basketball player, the Arizona, the Suns, who's the commentator that Charles Barkley?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Charles is a buddy of mine. Yeah. Charles.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was a good friend of Reggie's too. I mean, we were
That's
down.
right. He was here in Philly. I was down there messing with Charles. He's a great guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Charles is. I've crossed his path a couple times, but very quickly. But so you have culture, you have political, you have racism, you've got all these factors going on. What is the greatest challenge, or what do you see the way forward is, right? We're in the middle of Black Lives Matter and kind of this new, there's a lot going on, right?
Yeah, there is a lot going on. Well, I think that you really have, I think, different things that are happening. I think culturally, of course, I really think a lot depends on the Black family. And that's why I love to talk to guys about, valuing the relationship with their family and the responsibility they have. And that's something that is integral to the Black family.
And
see, that's something.
And success, right?
What's that?
And success, because
that's right.
If you just look at like the lowest quintile, right? If you're born in the lowest 20% socioeconomically, right? And you get a college degree, there's almost an equal distribution as an adult to all those. And the next most important thing that's almost identical is two-parent home, family structure. If you're in the lowest quintile, born in the lowest quintile, and you have two parents growing up, you have almost an equal distributive chance to end up in any of those quintiles, even the highest one.
Yeah.
And there's probably a lot of overlap between having a two-parent home and going to college, I would guess.
That's right. So all those, they factor in. And so encouraging, especially, the man plays such an important role, that if he values his family, it's going to affect the boys and the girls, it's going to affect them. And so, the kind of decisions you make, that's why, what I get a chance to do is having an effect on that. I think is very, very important, because I can see it. I mean, I go into schools, I go into, some tough neighborhoods and talk to the kids and everything. And so many of them, they need a role model, and just to be able to go in there with me and my wife and let them see, hey, this is my wife right here, and we've got kids, and this is my mom and dad back there, and so to be able to set that example. So that's a factor. Of course, opportunity is a factor. People need opportunity, and they need, and opportunity means fair opportunity. And the great thing about sports is, you have a lot more, not that anything gets to where it's perfect, but you got, hey, if a guy can play, he's out there playing, he's on the field, so So to have that in other areas, that's why I think, sports can play such they can be such a factor in helping to make things fair in other areas,
Well, I
because
think
sports is
I
right out
think
in
that's
front of
part of,
everybody.
yeah, I think that's part of competition. And I would even say,
Yeah.
the positives of capitalism, right, is it
Mhm.
promotes
Yeah,
trying to compete, which then promotes getting the best. And that's what you see in sports, right? And that's
that's
why
right. That's right.
for gender, class, race were
Yeah,
broken in sports before they were started to be broken in society.
that's
Because
right.
the guy that owned the Dodgers was willing to
Mhm.
break the social norms and hire Jackie Robinson, right?
That's right.
That's why
That's right.
Bear Bryant was willing to say, screw you, governor of Alabama. If I can't find a way to get the best players, then I'm going to have USC come out and roll over us. And then, which happened, then they begged him, okay,
Yeah,
you made your point. Go out and get the best, right?
that's right.
Yeah. And,
That's right.
one, almost forgot. So this is the kind of litmus test I use, for like policies.
Mhm.
And I know you're going to laugh when I mention this name, Ricky Younger.
What you said, Ricky Younger?
Ricky Younger at USC locker room, the neighborhood kid, Ricky Younger. Do you remember him?
Yeah. Well, Ricky Younger wasn't there when I was there.
Is that right?
No, I didn't know Ricky Younger. No, he wasn't there when I was there. No.
Okay. Well, so for my students, if you've ever seen the movie Radio with Cuba Gooding Jr., I swear he copied Ricky Younger.
Okay. All right. Nice meeting you guys.
And anyway, one of my litmus tests is like, if this policy is not going to help Ricky Younger, then I'm going to question it, because that's my litmus test is like,
That's a good one. That's a good one. I
you
think.
got a guy in South Central LA.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times, a lot of these policies are more for show and votes than they are to really help the people that really need the help,
And that's one thing that I think that a lot of things need to be looked at closer, because how does it affect the Black family? Because without families, kids, they need to be loved, they need to be disciplined. All those factors need to play in for a person to go on and do the things that they might have the potential to do. And so that's why I always look at the family. How does it affect the family? Because the family is really what allows a person to grow and be healthy and have the healthy emotions and I said, big thing is being healthy, where they can feel good about people, feel good about themselves, and we're all growing, and so to be able to be in an environment where you can grow, and the family is an environment where a person can grow, and that's why I'm always looking at how does it affect the family.
Mhm. Well, Gary, thank you so much for you were very gracious and generous with your time with us, and such great perspectives and insights, and great opportunity for us all to learn, and good to see you. Thank you so much.
And my pleasure. And I apologize for getting off on these rants.
No, no, that's okay. No, that's real life, man. Thank you.
Yep. All right. My pleasure.